Section 22 of 11 Stories by Henry Hasse. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Cinda J. M. We're Friends Now. Part 1. The little man stood in front of the monstrous machine as the synaptic drone heightened to a scream. No, no, he whispered. Don't you understand? Today, more than other days, Raoul Beardsley felt the burden, the dragging sense of inevitability. He frowned. He glanced at his watch. He leaned forward to speak to the copter pilot, then changed his mind. He settled back and, from idle habit, adjusted his chair scope to the familiar broad-spoked area of Washington just below. "I'll not have it happening again today," he told himself grimly. And at once his thoughts quavered off into many tangles of self-reproach. Blasted nonsense the way I've been acting. A machine. A damned gutless machine like that. Why do I persist in letting it get to me? He pondered that and found no solace. Delusion, he snorted. Hypersynapse disorder. That's how Jeff Arnold would explain me. I wish he'd confine his diagnostics to the mechanical division where it belongs. He's amused. They're all amused at me. But damn it, they just don't know. Beardsley's rotund body sagged at the thought. Adjusting the chair scope, he fixed his gaze on the broad facade of Crime Central building far across the city. Again, he felt the burgeoning embarrassment and foreboding. But he put it down with an effort before it reached the edge of fear. Not today, he thought fiercely. No, by God, I just won't permit it to happen. There. So, he felt much better already, and he had really made good time this morning. Today of all days, he mustn't keep ECA IAC waiting. Beardsley was the only one not to panic when the infallible machine broke down. Mustn't. Something triggered in Beardsley, and he was assailed with a perverse rebellion at the thought. Must not? But why not? Why shouldn't he just once keep ECA, IAC, and Jeff Arnold and his clique stewing in their own tangle of tubes and electronic juice? And wouldn't this, he gloated, be the perfect day for it? Arnold especially. Just once to shatter that young man's complacent routine. No. Beardsley savored the thought tastily and let it trickle away, and the look of glee on his cherubic face was gone. For too many years, his job as serological coordinator, Crime Central, had kept him pinned to the concomitant routine. Pinned or crucified, it was all the same. In crime analysis, as in everything these days, personal sense of achievement had been too unsubtly annihilated. Recalling his just completed task, the citizen files and persona tapes, and the endless annotating, Beardsley felt himself sinking still further into that mire of futility that encompassed neither excitement nor particular pride. He brought himself back with a grimace, aware that he was clutching the briefcase of tapes possessively from long habit. The pilot had touched the newsstat, and abruptly one of the new commercial appeals grated on Beardsley's senses. We repeat, yes, Proto-Suds is now available in flake or cake, and the new attachable luxury spray. Remember, Proto-Suds has never been laboratory tested. It contains no miracle ingredients, no improved scientific formula, and no lanolin. Then what is the new Proto-Suds? I tell you frankly, friends, it is nothing but a lot of pure, soft soap. Remember, we make no fabulous claims for Proto-Suds. We assume that you are reasonably clean to start with. And now for your late breakfast news. Proto-Suds takes you direct to Central News Bureau for a final survey on the Carmack murder case. Beardsley groaned. New voice in the background, while the screen presented a slow montage. Sin runs of the great Carmack himself, including those at the International Cybernetics Congress a year ago. Survey of the murder scene, the Carmack mansion, Close-up of ECA-IAC, diagrammatic detail of ECA-IAC, then dramatically the grim and imposing figure of George Mandlico, Minister of Justice, and then the newscaster's voice. Certain that final processing will go forward today, it would be a gross understatement to say that the Carmack case has captured the attention of the nation, both officialdom and public alike. Never in the history of Crime Central has there been such an undercurrent of speculation and excitement. Excitement? Murmured Beardsley. And now it is heightened by no less an authority than the Minister of Justice himself, who brought both plaudits and censure upon himself today with the outright statement that deep-rooted political issues may well be involved. As you must know by now, it was the murdered man himself, Amos Carmack, who some years ago carried on the incessant lobbying that resulted in ECA-IAC being accepted pro bono publico by Crime Central. What devastating irony! For now, it is ECA-IAC itself that must weigh each detail, correlate all factors, probe every motive and machination leading to the murder of its creator. That's not entirely true, you know, muttered Beardsley. Quick flicker again, a close-up of ECA-IAC, and the drama-laden voice. ECA-IAC, Electronic Analysis Integrator and Computer, and now an exclusive from a very reliable source. This reporter has learned that 3 primes are involved. Ha! grated Beardsley. And they will be broken down in quotient. 2 must ultimately be eliminated, barring, of course, the possible emergence of any minor factor to status of prime, which at this stage seems unlikely. It is estimated that by today, or tomorrow at the latest, Carmack's murderer will be brought to justice. Beardsley has taken as much as he could of this pseudo-factual mush. He jerked forward violently, rapped the pilot on the shoulder. Damn it! Will you shut the damn thing off? He was immediately appalled at his outburst and the pilot's startled glance, but the stat went off immediately. Beardsley leaned back, muttering to himself, Carmack. Carmack! For 7 weeks now he had lived with it intricately and intimately. As the case shoved everything else right off the newsstat, people took the latest echoes to bed with them. Commuters gobbled it with their breakfast cereal. Thank God today would see the end, and they could once more have the hot South Polar crisis with their cereal. 7 weeks. He clutched the bulging briefcase with a wearisome horror. 22 persona tapes from Central File, all neatly processed and ready for ECA-IAC. End result of endless chart shifts. Emphasis, as always, on periotosomatic recession, the slow emergence of minor constants, the inexorable trend toward price factor, and then verification, to each his own, with all the subtle and shaded values of the augment index brought finally to focus on the relevance graph. Carmack. Sure, thought Beardsley, a thing of augment indexing and psych tapes, quite without possibility of error. Now, in the old days of crime detection, it might have taken them even 7 months instead of weeks, not to mention frustration and legwork and false leads and sweat, but... His mouth pulled down bitterly. Serological coordinator. Glorified file clerk is more like it. High-salaried errand boy. Here we are, sir. The pilot's voice jarred him to reality as the copter berthed. Beardsley hurried toward the roof entrance. His faded blue suit, a size too large, flapped about him, and the outmoded felt hat seemed to sink to the level of his thick-lensed glasses. The guard greeted him, but suppressed a smile as the cherubic little man flashed his official pass. For there was something about Raoul Beardsley that eternally evoked amusement, an air of vacuous innocence and a remote forlornness. He gave the appearance of a person who sold shoes during the day, washed his wife's dishes at night, and then solved 2 or 3 galactogram puzzles before turning off the light precisely at 10. Few, if any, remembered that this nervous little man had once been top inspector of New York City's Homicide Bureau. But that was a dozen long years ago. Since then, he'd seen the antiquated detective methods of 1960 disappear, and he had died a little too, seeing his Homicide Bureau relegated to a mere subsidiary with the growth of the coordinate and mechanical divisions. His appointment to Chief of Coordinates, Federal, was automatic and unquestioned, and Beardsley would have been the last to know or to care that he had correlated some 8 million miles of serological data for the entrance of ECA-IAC, a perfect record of not one single unsolved case. And the penalty was in his eyes, if one cared to look beyond the thick-lensed glasses. No one ever did. They were remote eyes, a little bewildered, a little hurt, a mirror gone dull from times remembered but irretrievably lost. Beardsley stepped onto the corridor slidewalk, coasted to the escalator, and rode it down, still immersed in his thoughts. He pushed into ECA-IAC's room, and again it happened. So shockingly sudden, there was not even time for remonstrance at himself. The feeling hit him as always before, straight and unerring, a surging impact that smashed forward and stopped him in his tracks, literally paralyzed. He caught his breath convulsively. How often had he come here? And how often had this happened? Even when he sworn he wouldn't let it. There was something about the sight and sound and feel of ECA-IAC that got to him, that seeped beneath flesh and bone and into his brain and sent his senses singing. Beardsley managed to gulp as he observed the shiny black colossus that filled the entire length of the 90-foot room. A dozen techs scurried around it, taking notes, attentive to the flashing lights in red and green and the faint clicking of thousands of relays that rose in susurration. But more than that arose. It was something that pervaded the room, not a pulsing, but a presence, a sort of snapping, intangible intelligence that reached beyond the audible and sheared at Beardsley's nerve ends. And it hadn't been there a moment before. That was the shocking thing. Beardsley knew that. It knew. It was sentient. It was alive and aware and waiting, and it was listening. As always, it knew that he had entered. Beardsley gulped again, stood frozen for half a minute. None of the techs seemed to notice. They had often chided him about it, but he was used to that now. At last he broke the spell and made his legs move, feeling cold sweat as he hurried along the length of ECA-IAC toward Arnold's office. There, just about there, by the rheostats, where the 4 red lights and the 2 green made a baleful pattern against the black metal skin. He felt it stronger than ever this time, something reaching and sinister aimed solely at him. He skirted the place with a quick goosey hop, stumbled a little and felt panic, but made it all right to the office. Beardsley hated these moments. He was still trembling as he made a hurried entrance. Sure enough, as if on cue, Jeff Arnold glanced up from his charts and grinned. "Ah, good morning, Beardsley. Now don't tell me our pet snapped at you again." It was the routine remark, but today Arnold was immediately contrite for a change. "Sorry," he said, and a certain weariness replaced the grin. He gestured to the alcomech. "Can I dial you a drink? Feel in need of one myself." 11C, said Beardsley, and slumped into the pneumo chair. Arnold rose and dialed 11C, handed him the drink, and dialed 9R for himself. Sipping it, he moved around the desk. There was something very strange and preoccupied in his movements, Beardsley thought, more than a mere tiredness. He'd never seen Arnold this way. "Yes, sir, this is the day." A muscle twitched in his corded neck. Arnold eased his long frame into a chair, rubbed thumb and forefinger at his eyes. Been up half the night running off clearance tests. Can't afford to foul up on this one. Beardsley tossed off his drink and blinked at the fiery strength of it. Now, why should Arnold say that? When had ECA-IAC ever fouled up? He watched the man across the desk. Jeff Arnold was a vigorous, striking specimen, handsome in an athletic way, with long, stubborn jaw and unhappy gray eyes beneath his unruly hair. The sort of face that intrigues women, Beardsley catalogued from past experience, and, he added, altogether too young a man to be operating a monster like ECA-IAC. Arnold indicated the empty glass. Another? No, I think not, Beardsley replied carefully. Arnold hesitated, eyeing the briefcase in Beardsley's clutch. It's been rough on you too, I imagine. Hope there aren't more than 30 variants. We're set up for more, of course, but it'll necessitate 22, Beardsley assured him. Carefully, he spread the coded and sealed persona tapes across the desk. Fresh from Citizen File Augment, everything annotated and cross-checked. Blood count, emotional status, plethora, psychogenealogical index, neurothalamic imbalance. Every type factor is here. We really went to the files on this case. Looks as if you did. How does it narrow down? 15 possibles, 4 logicals, and 3 primes. Beardsley stopped abruptly. That newscaster. How had he known there were 3 primes? This stuff was not supposed to leak. 22 who knew Cormac, he went on. That includes associational as well as motive opportunity factors with a probability sphere of 0.004. Arnold nodded thoughtfully. His fingers moved unconscious and caressing across the edge of the desk. Yes, I see. That's close. Good job, he said uncertainly. Should be 7 weeks for annotation and code. Beardsley was watching Arnold's fingers. There was something amiss and fretful as they pushed among the code-sealed tapes. Beardsley made his voice casual. If it interests you, he said, yes, you are there. He wanted a reaction, and he got it. Me? Arnold stiffened, pulling his fingers away hastily. That surprises you? Don't worry, you're not one of the primes. Probably be rejected on the first run. It's just that you once knew Carmack rather well. Caltech, wasn't it, when Carmack was doing his special work on magnetronics? Naturally, you've had contact since due to the nature of your job. Arnold nodded, frowning. That's right. It just hadn't occurred to me that... Beardsley realized that he wasn't lying. It was not the thought of his own tape that bothered Arnold. Oh, we're thorough over at the Coordinates Division, Beardsley laughed, making a minor joke of it. Now here, he touched a spool labeled in red, is your basic invariant. Carmack, Amos T., murdered man, found bludgeoned in the library of his home, night of April 4th. Age 56, held all outstanding patents on ECA-IAC, worth millions, and, he looked up beaming, leaves beautiful wife. He paused for the merest moment. Save for a soft drumming of fingers on the desk, Arnold was silent. And here's a sub-basic. Mrs. Carmack will be a rich woman now. She was considerably younger than Carmack, and she's been having an affair with another man. Beardsley smiled at Jeff Arnold. That's a sociological note beyond our sphere, but we managed to get the data. I'll bet the department was appalled that such a gorgeous woman could be resolved into Neo-Euclidean equations. Why? Arnold was suddenly irritable. It's been done 1,000 times before. Of course, shrugged Beardsley. And it's really up to ECA-IAC, isn't it? A prime can be negated, while on the other hand a variant can shift from possible to logical to prime. Or am I wrong? I've never been up on the mechanics. Arnold grunted. There's bound to be some corollary shift. The primes, how many did you say? 3 as of now. Arnold rose abruptly, then strode to the alcomech and dialed himself another drink. He took an uncommonly long time about it. "Look," he said, "we both know about these things. In a case like this, there are bound to be political repercussions." He hit Beardsley with a gauging glance. "Well," he blurted, "I have to admit I'm damn curious. Mind telling me who are the three primes?" "Ah, strictly off the record, you understand." Beardsley had expected something like this, and he was quite ready to answer, but he carefully removed his glasses, massaging the bridge of his nose, and frowned. "Well, now—" "Come on, give. I know it's against protocol and all that, but hell, we'll have the answer anyway in a matter of hours." Beardsley nodded with a show of thoughtfulness. "Yes, that's true, isn't it? Very well, but strictly off the record, I warn you. Not only will the first prime startle you, but the information could be dangerous." He waited a moment, then he leaned forward and whispered, "Mandlico." For a moment, Arnold didn't move. His face was ludicrous. Then Beardsley saw his hands clench. "Mandlico?" The word jolted from his lips. "George Mandlico? Minister of Justice? I don't believe you." "It's a fact," Beardsley told him. "Right now he equates into an uncertain prime." Yes, but Mandlico? Good Lord!" "I said uncertain prime. As you mentioned yourself, there's sure to be a shift of variance. Surely you have faith in ECA-IAC." "Of course, but Mandlico? Why Mandlico?" "Why not? He was a friend of Carmack's, or a business associate, shall we say. He worked with Carmack on the ECA-IAC lobby, was largely responsible for pushing it through." "Yes, I say that's right. It would be in CF. There are things," murmured Beardsley, "in Central File that would astound you." Arnold was staring at the coded tapes. "Mandlico," he breathed. "And with elections coming up." He shook himself out of the daze. The other two primes?" "Next is not so startling. A really strong recessive factor there. Professor Karl Loesch." Arnold jerked erect suddenly. "Loesch? Say, I remember him. Now there's a man pursued by bad luck. He was working along similar lines to Carmack. In fact, wasn't he in Carmack's employ for a while? But Carmack was first with the patents. You don't suppose that Loesch—" "I'm not supposed to suppose," Beardsley said softly, "but clinically, it is interesting to note that motive factor alone equates Loesch from logical into prime, plus a high neurothalamic imbalance, 132/80 on the last index, with pronounced efforts at suppression." He watched Arnold absorb that and went on, "Now for the third prime. I think it'll interest you." He waited deliberately. He looked at Jeff Arnold for a long moment and saw the man was calm. Too calm. So absolutely motionless that it wasn't real. "Third prime, a strong one, believe me. In a way the most interesting of all." He pressed the words out slowly and flatly. "The third prime," said Beardsley, "is Pedersen." He watched Arnold relax ever so slowly, leaning back, the tension going away as he uncoiled in the chair. But the young man's face wasn't so much relieved as it was puzzled. "Pedersen? Pedersen? I don't seem to— You can't mean Brooke Pedersen, the one-time telecolumnist?" "None other. I don't suppose you remember, but back in '60, he opposed the ECA-IAC lobby. I mean, opposed it, fought it, predicted that government installation of such a machine would not inspire confidence, that the nation's crime rate would rise. He saw nothing but chaos. For a while there, he was quite a man, got himself a following, had ambitions." "But I do remember it." Arnold thumped the desk. "Of course. Pedersen headed a block against Carmack's folly, but he backed the wrong horse, and when the bubble burst, he was out in the cold. Became a laughingstock." Arnold paused, and his glance held something of shrewdness and a livening challenge. "Actually, Pedersen couldn't have been more wrong. In those first 2 years, ECA-IAC reduced the crime rate by some 40%. So it's claimed. This was a sore point, and Beardsley rose to the bait. It couldn't be that crime was on the downgrade already. I could show you plenty of statistics that... Why, I could show you methods. I'll just bet you could. Arnold gave a thin, tolerant smile. I refuse to enter that argument again. Not with you, Beardsley. I, for one, trust in machines, not in evolution. I've told you before. And Beardsley found himself sitting there with a flush of heat at his hair roots, half angry and half foolish as he realized how he had been baited. Jeff Arnold was abruptly all business. He plunged his finger at a button, spoke into the intercom. "Joe, how's that test run coming?" "All X so far. Give us 10 minutes for clearance." "Take 20, but make sure it's clearance." "Checked quantitative, have you? How about feedbacks?" "Yes." "What's that?" "Semantic circuits?" "Hell yes. Check all synaptics for clearance. I want no excess data fouling up this run." He clicked off and sat there moodily, and Beardsley watched him, noting the quick, nervous rhythm of Arnold's fingers. Arnold noticed it too and desisted. "Look," he said. "Mandlico, Loesch, Pedersen. Those 3 primes just don't make sense to me." "They don't?" Beardsley allowed just the proper note of resentment. "Surely you're not questioning coordinates." "You know I'm not, but..." Beardsley waited, knowing it was coming now, the thing Arnold had been aching to voice for the past 5 minutes. "But, well, damn it, there's Mrs. Carmack. For example, as you pointed out yourself, she'll be a rich woman now. It would seem to me..." "Does she be a prime?" "I'm surprised at you, Jeff. That's ancient thinking." If there was a trace of sarcasm, it was lost on Arnold. "Oh, I grant you it used to hold true. Principal beneficiary was always prime suspect. Fiction especially was full of it. Queen, Dixon, Carr, Boucher, you know the ilk. But with ECA-IAC, we've gotten away from all that, haven't we?" Arnold stared at him suspiciously, hesitated, then brought it all out with an effort. "Well, how did she equate?" "Who?" "Oh, yes, the beautiful widow. She only made logical, and even that is borderline." "I see." Arnold rose, dialed himself another drink, then changed his mind and put it down untouched. He turned to gather up the tapes, and his voice was apologetic. "It's not that I ever question coordinates division. We're too closely aligned for that, Raoul." First time he's ever used my first name, thought Beardsley. "You have a splendid record to uphold, as we do here in mechanical. That's why... Well, I want to get this off as smoothly as possible." Something indefinable, a queasy feeling, took Beardsley about the middle. He said sharply, "Any reason why not?" "No, not really, but in recent weeks... I tell you this in the strictest confidence, understand. In recent weeks, it's been a rather ticklish thing to get total synaptic clearance." Synaptics. Beardsley began thinking back to Crime Central. Required annual basic. The mechanical had never been his strong point. He said uncertainly, "But that's serious." "It's just that we found ECA-IAC holding back excess data from previous runs. Fouls up the relays. Takes hours to iron out the clearance." Arnold gave him a keen look. More of a nuisance, really. But the weirdest thing... stubborn. Stubborn. Beardsley could have thought of a better word. Through the paneled glass he glimpsed the black metal sheath of the monster out there, the shapeless crouching and malevolent winking lights, and he felt himself go to pieces inside with a sudden shaking crumble. He hated himself for it, but couldn't stop it. His hands clenched until his knuckles showed white. "Matter of time till we find the cause," Arnold was saying, "but I guarantee total clearance today. Shall we get on with it?" Hands loaded with tapes, he moved for the door. "No," Beardsley cried. "Arnold, if you don't mind, Oh, for God's sake, not again, Raoul. I swear I'm going to have to do something about this phobia of yours. It's getting to be not so funny anymore." With a show of exasperation, Arnold propelled him through the door. "I give you my absolute word our pet won't snap at you. Not today. It's going to be far too busy for the likes of you." Jeff Arnold was right, Beardsley discovered. Those baleful overtones were gone, replaced by a sustained soft whisper along the 90-foot hull, a rather impatient whisper, but not at all unpleasant. Beardsley relaxed by slow degrees, but kept a cautious distance while Arnold pointed out every light along the length flashing green for total clearance. "She's raring to go," said Arnold with a display of good humor, "but we'll let her wait a while, eh?" He clapped a friendly arm across Beardsley's shoulder. "You just come along now and watch. I think your trouble is you've never been properly introduced. We'll have no more of this feuding and fussing between you and ECAIAC. So Beardsley, showing more courage than he felt, trailed the cyberneticist through every unit of final checkup. Much of it he knew already from the required annual basic, or thought he knew, for this was so different from the manuals. He felt at once ashamed and awed as he viewed at first hand the unfolding schematic structure. He was thrilled at sight of the selectors and analyzers of processed beryllium, the logic and semantic circuits in complex little bundles, the sensitized variant tapes waiting for transferal impress, all revealed by a flick of Arnold's fingers that threw open entire sheathed sections to bear the inner secrets. The thousands of tiny transistors amazed Beardsley. The endless array of electric eyes startled him, and the spongy centers of synaptic cell clusters horrified him, recalling too vividly to mind what he knew of the physical human brain. Along the monstrous length he trailed Jeff Arnold. He trailed and he watched and he listened, not interfering once by word or gesture. And before it was over, his heart was surging with a great revelatory beat, because suddenly he knew. He knew. Arnold seemed in high good humor as they paced back. "So," he nudged Beardsley in the ribs, "we'll have no more of this nonsense between you and ECAIAC, eh? You're just bound to be good friends now." Beardsley didn't answer. The revelation was still too much with him. He watched as Arnold conferred with a group of his techs about a microchron, and the time was carefully noted for central record. Then the first of the tapes went in, the basic invariant, Amos Carmack. It reached synapses and a tiny blip registered on cue. The rest of the tapes fed in, razoring through the rollers, past the selenic sensitized tips of the relays. There was no progressive order. After the basic invariant, progression didn't matter. Possible or logical or prime, all factors would correlate or cancel. Any divergent status shift would be duly handled by transferal impress. Beardsley counted the tapes, 20, 21, 22. The techs dispersed, taking up their various posts where special eject tapes clicked out a second-by-second record of the progression. End of section 22.